Right. So now we continue our conversation and into suicide prevention. And I asked Mr. Sunny Etienne to kind of stay on with us. And Dr. McDuffie is going to take us through this. And so we asked Bianca to introduce it to us. And and they have a very they've had a previous relationship that that is Alcina, Miss Alcina and Miss Dr. McDuffie. So Bianca, take it away.
Okay, I have the honor of welcoming Dr. Kathleen McDuffie. Dr. McDuffie is the Chief Consultant of Inspirational Avenue, LLC. She is a four-time alumni of the University of Alabama at Birmingham, where she earned a Bachelor's of Science, Master's, and Ph.D. in Psychology, and a Master's in Public Health and Maternal Child Health, with an emphasis on international health. She has completed two postdoctoral fellowships, one in cardiovascular disease prevention and the other in the field of epidemiology. She has served as a member of the executive team of the former National Center for Health Marketing, the CDC, and as a member of the Institutional Research Board and Public Health Ethics Committee at the CDC, and a member of the Federal Collaboration on Mental Health Disparities Research. Dr. McDuffie is a United States Public Health Service Commission Corps veteran with over 22 years of service and Meritorious Service Medal recipient. Dr. Kathleen McDuffie.
Thank you so much, Bianca, and it's good to see you again.
Likewise.
Again, thank you, Dr. Hodge, for inviting me. As you have shared with everyone, I have been in other capacities, sort of supporting the efforts of the National Bioethics Center, and this is a very different role. And I'll admit to you, I had to give this some thought. I was like, I don't know if I do this anymore. I don't know if I speak at conference like things. I do primarily, I've been working with students and faculty and not sort of the mixed kind of population that we have today. So let me go ahead and try to share my screen, get this up. The other thing I want to let you all know, I've been having a glitch in my internet connection. So if I do glitch out, it's just been a flicker. I should be back on, so just hold on. Don't give up on me. So let's see. I think that's it. And then let me see if I can go to slideshow. Okay. All right, so the title of my presentation today is The Two Faces of Social Media Use, Considerations Regarding Suicide Prevention. It's already been mentioned in our conversations. In fact, this was almost like everything was like a lead up to this. And thank you, Mr. Sunny, for even mentioning that, even though there are some issues with social media, it can also be helpful. And that's the exact point that I will be making today. I like to dedicate this presentation to my great-grandmother, Miss Annie Hall Phillips. She was a native of Macon County in Shorter, Alabama. So those of you that know Macon County, you'll know where that small place of Shorter is. And one of the reasons why I'm dedicating this to her is because when it comes to the work that I'm doing, I don't know if this is just it for the rest of my life, but it certainly is the space I'm in now. I feel that I'm an advocate for humanity. She was my teacher of humanity, my guru. And I was very blessed to have someone who actually lived in the early, from the early 1900s and on through to 2003. And we had a very strong relationship. And in fact, every step of my life, all decisions in and out, she was always there. So she's been like a shepherd, and she continues to be. So as I was putting this together and thinking about, gosh, who do I wish I could talk to about this stuff? She came up and I said, okay, I'm going to actually dedicate this to her and, a native Macon Countyan. Okay, so the objectives are as you see them. I'm going to talk about some of the negative things, some of the negative characteristics of social media and how they contribute to self-harm and that whole spectrum, whether it's suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, or even suicide, and particularly with youth. The earlier talk with Mr. Sunny, he talked about adults and particularly those older but still young adults. But most of this work is going to be focusing on data around our youth, meaning middle schoolers and high schoolers and very young adults, like the early 20s. The other thing is I wanted to highlight that there are some specific things that have been in the media, certainly research, certainly in therapy and services around particularly cyberbullying and how it relates to youth suicide. And then, of course, as I promised, I will look at the other face, which is social media as a tool with regards to work that may be deemed suicide prevention. So these two faces. Social media has various characteristics, some of them good and some of them bad, and some of them actually kind of neutral. So these are the things that I think as researchers, as program directors, as service providers, as community, as students, we all need to be aware that even though it's fun and it has nice colors and it's kind of cool, there are these things that we need to look at and be aware of, so we can know whether or not it is serving us or is it harming us. The nature of this is why we have to have some ethical guidance. We actually need to be mindful in how we engage with these tools. And so this presentation will start with the troublesome characteristics, and then I'll conclude with the useful characteristics. So just to give you some background information, according to Pew, and this is, I think, their latest report in 2022, these are just some of the bullet points. 36% of teens report that they spend too much time on social media. And I believe some of the recommendations is that it should be under 2 hours a day. So even just given the question, do you think you spend too much time on social media? You got 36% saying, yeah, I do. And I think that speaks to some of that addictiveness. We call it an addictiveness. And another point, over 50% say it would be hard to give it up. And so other things, the connection between social media overuse, and this is what we're talking about in risk for the mental health issues that we've been talking about, like depression, anxiety, loneliness, and now including the poor body image and even self-harm and suicide, that there has been a connection shown in a lot of the research. There are also these cognitive places that people live now because of the influence of social media. We've heard the term FOMO. I remember the first time I heard it, it's like, well, it's just FOMO. I'm like, what the heck is FOMO? Fear of missing out. And I was like, okay. Because people are doing so much of showing, hey, look at the neat thing I'm doing. Hey, look where I'm going. Hey, look how cool I am. Da, 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 da. Hey, look what's new. Everyone wants to be the one to report the breaking news. Everyone wants to be the one to share. And so it's that whole, this is a space now, that fear of missing out that many people live with. The dysmorphias, meaning that it's particularly with young girls, but I'm sure there are also some young men that are also plagued by this. They call it the Snapchat dysmorphia, because for those of you who may not be familiar with the Snapchat platform, it allows you to easily put filters. So your skin, your hair, you can add little doodads and things of that nature. And so what's happening is that some young teens are wanting to get surgery so they can look more like their Snapchat images. And then some have a lot of distress because when they look in the mirror, it's very different. And so therefore the quality of the real self is diminished because they really want to look like the Snapchat image. And then there's this phenomenon of what they call tech apnea. So this is something I think I want to alert all of you to, if you're not related to. When you're texting, answering emails, any of this tech engagement, you may actually be holding your breath, or you may be doing very shallow breathing. It's called tech apnea. And then finally, one that's related, cyberbullying. So these are all these terms. There's new terms that's linked to social media overuse. Okay. So loneliness, again, was brought up earlier as being significant to the mental health picture. And so this is something that is recent from the Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy. And this phrase is what I lifted from that, because I thought that really captures it. There actually is a small section in that report called The Impacts of Technology on Social Connection. It says the existing evidence illustrates that we have reason to be concerned about the impact of some kinds of technology's use on our relationships, our degree of social connection, and our health. And so again, this is, it's kind of like the environment that I'm speaking from today. It's all about the erosion of the relationships, the erosion of that real kind of connection, that connection that I had with my great grandmother, and then how that then influences our health. Sherry Turkle. Dr. Turkle is a MIT professor. She's a clinical psychologist. And I'll just be honest with you, it was through observation at work. It was after Blackberries were issued. And I noticed that there was an erosion in the social quality in the workplace. And because I did have some autonomy to put together training sessions and go around, I started to look things up, and I came across Dr. Turkle's TED Talk. And I was like, aha, I knew it. I knew it was something. I know it's not just me. There is something that's happening here. And so one of the things that she warned about, this was back in 2012, so it's kind of dated now. It's been over 10 years since this TED Talk came out. But she talked about the overuse of the smartphones and how it was eroding true connection. This is where, if you've been around, there are groups that would have come out and said, oh, let's unplug. I used to always participate in that and had a talk that I would give yearly and let people know about the let's unplug this weekend. Put down your phones, and when you're at the table with each other, kind of put the phones away. So all these kinds of things. This is what Dr. Turkle has been trying to warn us of in her book, Alone Together. I mean, think about that title, Alone Together, why we expect more from technology and less from each other. And this was written in 2011. One of the things that she covers a lot is not just like the smartphone, but it's actually these little robots. She does a lot of work with children and also the elderly, so kind of both ends of the spectrum. And she would notice how quickly human beings would form attachments with things that were basically robots. And so some of the dialogue that we're hearing now about AI and some of the hopes that people have is like, oh my God, I'll be able to have a real relationship with my AI. You know, folks have already started talking about maybe the sentientness of AI, and can you marry your AI, and different things of this nature. So what she was warning us about, certainly more than a decade ago, was that we need to watch out, because just we do have this propensity to give human attributes to objects. And then on the flip of that, treat human beings like things. So one of the things that she also tries to share is that sometimes we need to be bored. Sometimes solitude is great. I notice now that nobody just wants to sit in silence. When you're waiting in the grocery line, when you're in the airport, you grab the phone. Let's see what I can do. What can I fill my head up? Whose opinions can I listen to? Who can I contact right quick? But not just kind of sit and watch and maybe let some things solidify and maybe have a good memory. Oh, gosh, that person looks like a best friend of mine. I'm not going to text them right now, but I'm going to call them within 2 days. We don't do that anymore. So she promotes solitude, exploring self. And yes, and this was another point in some of her research, that with children, sometimes when they have seen so many animated types of animals, they view the animated animals as more realistic, and they prefer these animals than to looking at real live animals. So, like for instance, think about something that might be a Disney type animatronic, all right, like a fake squid or something like that, and then taking a child to the to like an aquarium and them seeing a real squid, they're not likely to be amazed by that. They'll say, it doesn't look as realistic as the animatronic. So there actually is kind of confusion early on, and these are things that she's warning against. Like, So, all right. So what should we understand about social media? Everyone does not have time to read everybody's books and all of these things, but I have some appreciation for for a couple of documentaries that are fairly recent. The first one I saw was The Creepy Line. And The Creepy Line actually is available on some of the free networks right now, like Tubi and Freevee and things of sort. It may even be available on YouTube. The Social Dilemma, I'm not sure if it's on those platforms yet, but it's on Netflix. And this, when I saw The Creepy Line, I kind of kept things to myself. It was one of those, see, I know I wasn't crazy. The Creepy Line actually talks more about the power of the tech world. And so that was kind of like, and it was mentioning a little bit about how our information is being tracked and is sold and all that, but it's more about the power. Now, the social dilemma, this was the one in recent times where it was crossing over kind of, even my husband was like, oh my gosh, they're talking about this social dilemma in my coaching group. He's a executive coach. And I said, yeah, I've seen it. And yeah, everybody needs to watch it. And I'm actually happy that we at least have something now, because this gives kind of people that aren't, you don't have time to read all the books and different things like that, but you can watch this. And this is out of the tech leaders themselves. So these are people that have worked at Google and Facebook and so forth, and they're literally saying, we think we made a mistake, or we know we made a mistake, and now we want to do something to try to help it. So I would just say, if you have the time or the interest to know more, definitely be aware with be aware of the some of the topics that come up in these movies. And so one author, well, he's a tech, he's an inside tech, and he's in his, I think his early 60s, maybe. Jaron Lanier. He's my favorite, actually. I have been all over YouTube watching all his interviews. I have listened to, because I'm an Audible person, so I've listened to his book on delete your social media accounts. I'm going to listen to it again, because this is where this term comes from, bummer. And that term means behaviors of users modified and made into an empire for rent. All right. And so, again, like I said, he's a veteran computer scientist. He is actually one of the founders of virtual reality. And so he has sounded that alarm. He's actually featured. You see little clips of him in both of the movies that I just mentioned. And he really says, one of the big things is that even if things started off well-meaning, it's the business model that's the root cause of the what has happened, because it's advertising. So it means that our attention, or our information, but also our attention, is what's being sold. And so therefore, we have to be manipulated to paying more attention. And therein lies where there is no right that can be done in that. The other thing that you'll hear, if you go to the Social Dilemma movie, I have not gone back to count it, but I know it was more than one time where they mentioned that we were all experimented on, and without our knowing, and we were all being psychologically manipulated in such a sneaky way that we don't know it. So that is that's kind of built in. It's created that way. So what is so bummer, meaning what's so down about it? What is so bad about it? So here are just a few. Again, he gives several in his book, The 10 Reasons to Delete Your Social Media Account. But it rewards attention, like I mentioned. And unfortunately, what gets the most attention is the outlandish, the nastiest, the biggest jerk, the warnings, the pessimism. That's the stuff that really gets the attention. And even if you do things like YouTube and you put in just a simple, hey, I want to know more about this, before long, those suggestions are probably going to go into some kind of, place like, oh, no, that's just somebody that's, this kind of creepy stuff. It doesn't take long for it to get there. And so, and also being in these groups, they can be kind of mob like, even if you look down into some of the real comments. You can't trust that all comments are real. He talks about it intruding into your life with the notifications. Again, remember the fear of missing out. So you could really be in a I don't know, a real human conversation, and you'll get a ding ding. And even if you don't click it and read the whole thing, your eyes and your attention will probably glance towards it just to see what your favorite influencer is talking about. The purpose of the information that it is feeding is really to try to change your behavior. It's trying to drive you to do something, usually to buy something. Companies that maybe had no desire to use social media, such as the news, such as our government institutions, such as our universities, were pressured into using social media, because if not, you don't exist. Even though you know it's not perfect, but this is something that you're having to take part in. I remember having to get a Facebook account and to learn how to use Twitter in the early years. There's a whole lot of bots, meaning not real people. There are these automated catfishers, there are fake reviewers, etc. All of this is rampant. So it's a lot of garbage out there. And so again, like I said, if you want to learn more about his thoughts, 10 reasons to delete your social media accounts right now. And I think it's so funny because the title of the book is like clickbait. So I just laughed when I was looking and I said, oh my God, this sounds like clickbait. And I think he did that on purpose. So again, he does have a sense of humor, but he goes into, and he really gives you a good look at the underbelly. So here is just a model that I put together. It's kind of like, well, so what's the pathway here? How is this working? How is this influencing? How can social media be influencing self-harm and all the way up to suicide? Well, one of the things, like I said, it's how it's designed, keeping attention, rewards meanness. It doesn't have any concern about, is this useful for the person? It's only about getting the attention so people can sell that person something. And whether the something is a product, or if it's an idea, or to join some group, that's what it's for. The other thing that you will hear is that along with illicit drugs, software companies regard their customers as users. So what is that whole concept about? And people are the product being sold. So it's kind of like, I think another quote is, if it's free, then you're the product. That's kind of the take home. And then so now you're locked in. Well, there's this whole drive to be perfect. So whether you're filtering your images, the communication is oftentimes very short, doesn't have a lot of quality. You're identifying people as friends or followers. And so what does that mean? And you're just reduced to your profile. So again, it really does water down the human being. And if you're in that world, because I think of cyberspace as it's just another environment that we're in, just like our neighborhood, just like our institutions, just like our homes, where we hang out and the qualities that are around those places that we hang out in cyberspace have a large impact on our self-concept. And so again, this can lead to that mismatch of the online self to the offline self, and you could be canceled, cyberbullied. And then again, if you're spending a lot of time on that, you're probably not engaging in real life social connection. And we can kind of see what this could then lead to. Okay. So now I want to get specifically into the cyberbullying. And so here's that term again, cyberbullicide. And I'll be honest, Dr. Hodge, I did not know of this term until I started doing research for this. I knew there was a link, but I didn't know that some academics had actually given this term, cyberbullicide. So it's a term coined by Samir Hinduja and Justin Patchen to describe the subclass of suicides that are directly or indirectly influenced by online aggression or cyberbullying. And so in one study, it's been found that middle school age victims were 4 times more likely to have thoughts of suicide and attempt suicide compared to those that didn't. That's 4 times more likely to end up on the spectrum of this, from the thoughts all the way up to attempt when cyberbullied. And so it's kind of like, well, what is it about cyberbullying? What is about this being cyberbullied that makes it different from outside bullying? Maybe all of us have experienced bullying. I know I had experienced bullying. I still experience bullying, but cyberbullying is, it can include not just hurtful comments, but it could be also images that people take of us, video, because now everyone, you have phones and everything you do with those videos, people can edit those videos. And you could become a laughing stock. Could be something very serious that happened to you. You could have fallen or whatnot, and people could put little things on it, and now you're a laughing stock, not just of people that know you or saw you fall, but people who don't know you. And then you have access to all the comments that those people may be making about. So it's a whole new level of embarrassment, potential embarrassment. Rumors, things that aren't true, criticism, sexual comments, someone threatening you. What's also known is that many that are cyberbullies are also cyberbullied. So it's the hurting. Cyberspace allows the perpetrator to remain anonymous. So sometimes you may not even know who's starting it, because you don't have to have your name. You could have a made up name or whatnot. And so you can't avoid those attacks. The offending content is present always. Very different than slipping up in the cafeteria and getting laughed at. And in 2 days, everybody forgot it because somebody else slipped in the hallway, and now they being laughed at. So this is that stuff is always there, and it could go on and on and on, and then again be brought back up to memory. So incidents are rising. Cyberbullying is on the rise, and currently the estimates are that about 15% of adolescents have been cyberbullied. 15%. And so I just wanted to share, here are some cases of cyberbulicides in recent years. 12-year-old Rebecca Sedgwick, extensively bullied and cyberbullied by girls from school, including a former best friend, and even after switching schools. The bullying continued. After a year and a half, Ms. Sedgwick took her life. 2019, 16-year-old Channing Smith was outed as being gay by sharing the text messages he exchanged with a male classmate. They were shared on social media. A few hours later, Mr. Smith took his life. And this I saw on the news. I don't watch a lot of news, but sometimes I'll click it on. And this was one of the moments I had clicked it on. And I saw the mother of this 16-year-old, Azaria White, took her life after being bullied online. And this was just this summer in the Atlanta area. So more and more stories like this we're seeing. The other thing I wanted to make everyone aware of, because I'm not sure of what was used, what kind of social media, if it was some of the ones that we know about, like Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, what have you, or if these were being done through anonymous apps. But it is something you should know, that there are these anonymous apps that you, or really anybody, can sign up to, and they typically are used for people that have some type of bad intent, whether they're frauding people, if they're trying to solicit youth, or cyberbullying. So again, we have to be aware that there are these secret kind of apps out there, and some of these apps have been linked to suicide attempts. This information is from the Social Media Safety Organization. Some of the messages that people receive actually tell them to kill themselves in so many, in so many words. It's either like, oh, you should be dead, or kill yourself, or da, da, da. It could be just that direct. So let's see here. So I've gone over the social media characteristics, kind of like the basic design and its potential harm, how it contributes to self-harm and suicide. And also I've covered some of the contemporary issues related to cyberbullying and youth suicide. So now I like to focus on social media as a tool with regards to suicide prevention. And so this is what I'm calling the other face, because remember I said it was two faces. This is the other face. And having spent time in the area of health communication, which included the use of social media, I am not anti-tech. I am not anti-social media. I think you've already heard me say, oh, I saw this on YouTube, I saw this on Netflix, I saw that. So certainly I am not. I have a smartphone, but I do believe that we do have to rein ourselves in and sort of use the tools in an appropriate way so they don't fall into the harmful category. So I do really strongly believe that social media can be and has been a valuable tool for healthcare, research, and public health. Some of the current uses of social media, particularly in these areas, we've been able to use it to find and recruiting participants, whether they're in our research, in our programs, doing content analysis of posts. I actually was involved in something called social media surveillance during the Ebola epidemic. And my job was to peruse Twitter. And it was Twitter that was going in the impacted countries, and also here in the United States. I was looking at how the messages in the United States, how the messages from Department of Health and Human Services, from CDC, from other public health agencies, and how well that was permeating into the social media feeds of those that were considered influencers. Now, at the time, those influencers were mainly people that were news people, maybe some people that served in Congress, but they were people, they weren't just any old body. And I think there was a criteria they had to have so many followers. And so I was keeping up with that. But at the same time, I was looking at Twitter and what was really going on in some of the impacted African countries. And then writing that up in a report and, sending that for the director to have situational awareness. So that's one way, I think is an appropriate use of content analysis. There are some ways I think we need to be careful with this. Networking. you know, LinkedIn, or whether it is still on Facebook or whatever we're using when we're sharing about news in our areas. If there's a campaign that we want to get out, it was just shared with the number for a crisis hotline. It's like, hey, send that in text, right? Or put that in your X account. So this is a good use of it. It gets the word out. It can influence policy. We can combat misinformation, and we can also promote behavioral healthy behaviors. So again, there are these positives that we can do. And so specifically with suicide prevention, and I actually kind of looked up to say, in the past, when suicide prevention programs are using social media, what are some of the ways they're doing it? So I did find something on that. So the creation of communities around the topic of suicide prevention is a good one. And we have talked a lot about how we create communities, especially those that may have had some losses. So we think about, I know with some of the suicide clusters that we've had to address at CDC and on some of the reservations, could be a way to connect even the different tribes that may have been impacted. So that would be a way to use social media in that. Advertise programs and chat lines, and targeting teams and also other groups. Engaging community members in dialogue. Communicating updates if you're having a task force, being able to use it in that way. And then if you have websites, if you have campaign, if you have toolkits, also driving the target population to those things. So here are some things that suicide prevention programs or organizations, these are ways that they have been using social media. Sorry about that. Okay. So what are some of the ethical considerations? So let's just pretend, we're going to do something in suicide prevention, whether it be a new service, whether it be a program, whether it be a campaign. What are some things that we should think about? And we want to use social media. So again, it's that balance between manipulation and autonomy that always has to be considered. Now, when it comes to suicide, we actually may need to nudge, because this is an area whereas if somebody finds, and depending on how you are finding them, so let's just say you're using something and in their search, the way they're searching things, it flags them as, this may be someone who's having suicidal thoughts. Well, you actually may want to throw a sticker up there and say, if you're having suicidal thoughts, or you know somebody who has, go ahead and call this number right now. So that's not a time to be passive and say, oh, we don't know about it. And in fact, in one of the few areas, I think it was actually suicide prevention and misinformation was the times where it's an area where we may want to do more nudging, but not more nudging than necessary. So this is why you have to get in and kind of consider it and mull around with it a bit. Privacy is something we have to be aware of. Again, we don't want to have programs where we're getting people to sign up for them or give us their information, and then the companies that we're working with somehow is logging their information as someone who is contemplating suicide, have suicidal thoughts or self-harm thoughts and all these kinds of things. So we want to make sure that when we're working with the social media companies, that we can protect the privacy of individuals, and then we must communicate how we're protecting the privacy. Be aware of biases and the fact that even though some of the targeting that some of the companies claim they can do, sometimes it's I don't know where it's not really as good as it says that it is. So you can't really trust that just because you said I want to target this group and blah 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 blah. Recognize that groups that are marginalized are likely to still be missed, and so there are other things that you may have to consider to make sure that you're getting those groups that you want to address. So again, it probably would be a mistake to do social media alone, or to make sure that you are partnering with other organizations who know how to reach out to the populations via social media. Okay, and then the other one, include accountability practices. Be prepared to be transparent, letting people know exactly how you're doing everything. So keeping accurate records, who talked about what, how was it decided, and just like in a drug trial, when do you stop it? If something comes up, how are you going to get out of it? You find out, you're working with a social media company, we were guaranteed thus and so would not happen, but it does, it does. So how do we get out of that? So all of these things should go into consideration when doing that. Okay. The other thing that I like to encourage all of us, no matter what your profession is that there are guidelines on social media use. So whether it is, if you're in patient care, there are guidelines for that. For research and whatnot, there are different guidelines. So be familiar. Go ahead, get them, and kind of read over them. Get books. And if you don't have time to read, like I said, I don't do a lot of really reading with my eyes. I am an Audible subscriber, and I only save the books that are not on Audible. I read the books that are not on Audible. Sometimes I'll buy a book even if it's on Audible, because I'm like, oh, I actually need to write in the margins. I need to find that chapter, write in the margins, and put a good old sticky note on it, and because I'll be coming back to that passage over and over again. So again, with books, podcasts, listen to interviews with experts just to stay up on what is going on in tech. Casual conversations. I bring this topic up for folks that may be doing a lawn at my house. If they're doing the deck, I brought this up with the deck guy. I brought it up with a friend that I saw, we were walking, and she said, what are you up to? I said, you got time? She's like, sure. I said, let me run something by you. And so then she went on to tell me issues with her grandchildren. She encouraged me, Kathleen, get out here and do this work. We need more people. We don't just want to hear from the tech people. We want to hear from psychologists. We want to hear from other people about what do we do. Because yes, you're right. It's stealing something important from us. So again, those casual conversations can inform. Information from organizations such as the Social Media Safety, I brought them up. They have a lot of information on their website. So if you're not familiar, definitely go and visit. And then the Center for Humane Technology is actually the tech people are now conversating. It's actually where I think the movie The Social Dilemma was probably born out of that organization. And they actually have on their website, well, you kind of have to sign up to get to all the goodies. So I did sign up. And so they do have some things, even toolkits to help you dialogue about the movie, Social Dilemma, plus other things. They also now have a conference. So in conclusion, I think as we are considering social media and how we're looking at it, especially with the self-harm, suicide work, we have to discuss both sides of it. We have to include cyberspace as an important sort of social determinant in this case. So think of cyberspace as an actual place. And the landscape changes quickly. So even when I was telling you about those anonymous apps, those things die out and then another one pops in place. Staying current with the advancements, so therefore it's critical. There are always these new platforms. Facebook used to be the whole thing. Everybody was talking about Facebook. Now it's TikTok. TikTok has taken over the #1 spot in social media engaged with young folk. There's also these little challenges that you may hear of. I don't know, things like I remember the Tide Pod. People were putting those things in their mouth and squishing them. I did look up to see, were there a lot of poisonings? I think there were some, but it wasn't any more than any more. So this was not something that certainly nobody wants to eat the detergent, but it didn't cause at least a poisoning epidemic, but who knows what will? Who knows when there will be challenges maybe to swallow razor blades or something weird like that. So there's always these things that are coming out that may influence our young to participate in very risky behaviors. And then looking at those guidelines, using that to inform a systematic design of programs. Not just copying what you think others did, but to really kind of look at it for your population, programs, your services, your research, and just remain diligent regarding ethical consideration. And so that is all I have for my formal presentation. And thank you so much again for allowing me to share, to get some of this stuff out of my head and to share with this forum.
Well, thank you very much for putting it on our laps, Dr. McDuffie, because you gave so many things there, and hopefully you could send me the PowerPoint. Hopefully you might consider publishing a paper, informative document on this, because what you said, even in just the, let me see if I said it right, cyberbullying. I mean, one of the things that affected me and drive me to these kinds of conversations is something happened, maybe it was about 10 years ago, but many of you will remember. A young man, this is not cyber, but is a young man at Rutgers University. I guess he was engaged in a homosexual relationship with his friend or roommate or whatever, but someone videotaped it and spread it across the campus of Rutgers University. And by within 24 hours, 48 hours, he had jumped off the bridge. I think is the George Washington, but whatever. He committed suicide, and this is over a decade later, and it still affects me. It still bothers me tremendously that, number one, people are so cruel, because each of us have something that's deeply in us that we wrestle with or we come to conclusions about, but some are still wrestling with. Two is apparently he didn't think he had somewhere to go. He didn't think that there were places where the people would listen and perhaps help him talk through or reason through his conclusions. Thirdly, for some reason, he didn't have sufficient faith in his parents or loved ones to embrace him and to trust them. And maybe he was wrestling with his own fears about what they would think if he was not totally out of the proverbial closet. And in that regard, I was shame and those kind of things. And therefore he thought that death was better. And then fourthly, like I said, is not cyberbullying, but it is bullying, that an entire community of persons who saw the video and all this thought that it was okay. And shame on them, shame on us.
That actually, yeah, to share that in a way that was shameful. Certainly, it was not celebrating. It was not like, hey, he found a lover. Congratulations. It was done in a nasty, mean way. And again, when going viral, I did a video that went viral. I'm going to do this because it's going to go viral.
And get likes.
And you don't, yes, or whatever. Yeah. Just the idea that you can see how many views, even if it's not the like, even if the like button was not, I don't know at the time if there was a like button, but I do remember like, oh my God, it's 50 million views, it's 50,000 views already. And that kind of watching is for the maker of the video. That that may have really been what it was all about. It was like, this is something that I know when I put this out, I'm going to get that hit. And there was no police or no anything to say, maybe this is something that should be, cool, let's block this. Can't be shared anymore. We got to evaluate it. None of that. Because again, what's the model? The model is attention. And things that get high views get pushed up. So anyway, go ahead.
Additionally, and since we're talking about suicide, not just cyberbullying, but additionally, about 2.5, 3 years ago, my wonderful BHP students, Jonathan David Hodge, who has a very familiar name, he had a question, he had actually a statement or question that he wanted to state. So, but about 3 years ago, we had a suicide conversation, Dr. McDuffie, amongst the BHP, but it was also spread. But we had, I think there's 163 students who participated. It was a large number on Zoom, a very large number. But our president at the time of the Barrett's Honors Program, Nina Hilton, it was very meaningful to her. And I, of course, we encourage the students to lead in something. And she brought on her uncle, who gave a testimony about his son, who's attended some great university on the West Coast, and came back home to New York and worked at a really, really, really nice Wall Street job. Brilliant young man. All signs for him was straightforward in terms of like no depression, no anxiety, of those kind of things. And he committed suicide. He left no letter. So of course there's something deep-seated that we have no idea, we may never know. But the father, just listening to the father talk about this, because of course he's trying to convince other students, if you're wrestling with this, please talk to somebody, say something. But that's why I do these particular suicide prevention, because if we could catch one person, if we get one person, because everything we do here is going to be on YouTube, and it will have the tagline, so the hashtag suicide and so on, so that if we could reach one person, even that information that Dr. Brendel gave, what's the number again? Is it 988? Okay, 988. I had never heard of that.
Yes, it was just instituted last year.
Last week?
No, last year.
Last year? Okay, well, we have to push this thing all over the place because it is so imperative. Okay, so we have I don't think, is that a question we have in the queue? Or
we have a question that's in the chat. It was sent to me privately.
Okay, so you go ahead and ask the question. And then after that, Jonathan was texting me some things about his responses to the conversation we're having. And so I said, well, you go ahead and say it yourself. I'm not going to speak on your behalf. Bianca, you go first and ask the question, and Jonathan actually state or ask whatever he is.
The question is, what is the position of the American Psychological Association regarding the utilization of apps to help facilitate, extend, and advance mental health services to the general public?
Well, the APA's stance primarily is we have to utilize telehealth format, but within the guidelines of HIPAA. And there's a lot of, stipulations that goes with that. There are certain apps out there that, have gained some traction, not some for good purposes, some for not so good. Some are seeing that the quality of service is not up to par. There's something that's lost, when you're receiving treatment through the medium of an app versus even telehealth or in person, whether it's with a psychiatrist or medical doctor or with even a therapist. And so, it's the same thing along the lines of what Dr. McDuffie was bringing up in terms of the social engagement. It lost even between the provider and the patient. And so HIPAA is the gatekeepers in trying to help us, abide by certain codes to ensure that quality of care is provided and rendered.
Thank you very much, Ms. Etienne. Jonathan, unmute yourself and you can share what you wanted to share.
Sorry. I just wanted to say how important of a discussion this being. I just wanted to add a little more towards the social media aspect. And I noticed that a large part of, like, I didn't realize, especially through my life, like the fear of missing out was such a bad thing until quarantine became a thing. And that did a lot. I feel like it did it a lot, was a major factor, or contributing a factor of let's say suicidal death, depression, and all that. Because once you're on social media and you're already cut off from people, now you're physically cut off from people, and now becomes all you have. It becomes it becomes extremely hard, especially at your most vulnerable stage, being a teenager. Mentally, it becomes extremely hard, and not, especially when you do not know how to deal with things. And I feel like that's an important thing to talk about and to mention. Another thing is small things.
Hold on. Let's stop with that for a moment, Jonathan. Hold your second point. I would like Dr. McDuffie and Mr. Etienne to respond to that, because I think that is such an important part of because remember, Dr. Warren was the first person I heard particularly said we should not be talking about social distancing, we should be talking about physical distancing. Social distancing can create some massive issues, and I think he was right. So Dr. McDuffie and Mr. What do y'all think about that statement about the isolation?
And thank you, Jonathan, for bringing that up. And it's one of again, this is very complex, but some of my initial thoughts as I opened, I brought, I dedicated this to my great-grandmother. So when my great-grandmother and I met, she was 69 years older than me. Someone who had been on the planet, coming through the times that she had come through. And I was on her dress tail, as they say. Women used to mostly wear dresses and aprons and things of that nature.
Skirt tail.
And so I was holding on, getting my walking on. That I didn't have a little cute little walker with no, with Mickey Mouses and all that kind of stuff. It was her skirt tail apron. So again, that was my connection. And growing up in the era that I grew up in, of course, it wasn't the, digital connection. Totally not important. Electricity was important. But I remember when the electricity used to go out. And that would be like the internet going out now. Okay. When the electricity used to go out, I didn't fret, because then you know what I knew? We were going to light candles and maybe kerosene lamp. And yes, you think about the fire hazard, but we never had a fire. But we had all of that, and we were going to go back and get peach preserves or pear preserves. And we were going to eat that, and then we were going to talk in the dark. That was the entertainment. That is the same way that she entertained in her day. The reason why I think when young folk kind of got separated from their groups and it was so disastrous is, unfortunately, due to our busy schedules, due to parents being face down on their devices or on their computers, or you didn't know how to say, oh, good, we don't have to worry with all those outside things. Now let's do our fun stuff. You don't have any fun stuff. You don't know each other. Even siblings don't know each other like that. Like saying good. Now for me, yes, COVID was awful, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I made the best of it. I was like, I know exactly what to do. I didn't suffer with fear of missing out. I was not on Facebook. I didn't join Instagram. I totally ignored Twitter. I use YouTube though. I will tell you that. Because there was ladies on there doing African dancing, and there were lectures from old conferences that I didn't get a chance to go to, and now I can sit back and listen to this. Oh, Audible. Ooh, I lit that up. I'm going on my walking. Do. But I get it that kids were distressed because they never really had any time where it was just blackout like that. And unfortunately, parents didn't have anything to say, well, let me teach and guide you, because they were shuffling, trying to figure out, how am I going to work at home and feed this one and put this one in front of the computer? And they're only 6 years old. And then I got this one over here that every time I check, they're not doing their work. Oh my God, I think they're going to flunk 7th grade. It was horrific. And we didn't even talk about it in real terms. It's just, well, there are challenges, all this watered down stuff. And there was nobody really coming up. There wasn't a space that was saying, yeah, it is a challenge, but here are some of the things that y'all can take the time to do. Here's the time to take advantage of this and reconnect. It's going to feel awkward. When folks would say, what do I do? I said, you know what? They got these awkward things out called conversation cards. You might want to try them. There's some stuff on Netflix. Won't y'all watch it and then talk about it? Try something. Figure out what music your kids like. Listen to it. Find out, why. But it was still more of, let's just get off to our little corner and still keep our little thing going. So that's one of the things that I think that, with the distancing, it was only saying, okay, stay away from each other so you don't infect each other, so we can keep down the spread. But nobody said, and then here are the other things that you might do to take advantage of this. Let's work with the school systems to try to figure out, how are we even going to do school? What, it's not like online learning was something new. Virtual schools have been going on for years. with good, people get certifications in virtual kind of training and stuff like, so it didn't have to be as bad, but it just left everybody kind of fending for self.
Mhm.
And then when some people started to travel and other folks may have not, it really got bad then, because they're going and I want to go. And so inside of homes, you kind of had some of that. So Jonathan, I hope that speaks to it. But I think it would be good to debrief what happened. What you brought up would actually be a good forum for people to share their experiences and for us to debrief what happened, and then maybe come up with if this thing happens again,
What do we do?
if we get another really scary, infectious something, or there may be some other reason to shelter in place. But in some other reason when we share, then what do we do to make the most of it? So I'm gonna let Mr. Sonny take over from there.
Sure, definitely. I think one of the places we could start is to think about what the next pandemic might be. Let's say it is an issue with a computer shutdown. Well, there goes your Wi-Fi and there goes your phones. So I'm going to mention a few movies, and maybe you guys can relate to this. There's a film called Megan. It's with this doll that is particularly AI. And as you remember in the film, the young girl, she becomes addicted to this child, to this robot. She can't live without the robot. In fact, when her aunt tries to take the robot from her, she gets physically violent. There's another movie I want to bring out there. It's based on a popular book called Ready Player One. And this is about living in a virtual world and not being connected to the real world. Here's another movie I want to bring out. It's called Her. It's about a guy who falls in love with his Alexa. So I'm saying all that to say our phones is just that. It can become our baby, our homeboy, and to the point to where now we are depending on this device to satisfy what I call the 5 A's. We want to feel attachment. We want to receive attention. We want acceptance, approval, and we want to be self-actualized. And if we don't feel that, we feel alone, afraid, anxious, angry, and apathetic. So our social disconnection is a reminder of just how bad and how much we need people. We can't live with them, but we also can't live without them. And so it's us being able to, in our own selves, explore what is going on with us, as Dr. McDuffie put it. During the pandemic, Jonathan, a lot of my clients had a hard time going back to school. A lot of them lost a lot of friends. It even hit me personally. One of my daughters and I were taking a walk one day, and I noticed she was very distant. And I said, "What's going on?" "Oh, nothing, oh, nothing." And I said, "No, you're different." And out the blue, she just broke down and started crying. At the time, she was in middle school. And I said, "What is going on?" "I lost all my friends, Dad. They've all abandoned me. I'm by myself with just this phone. I love video games, but no gamer out there can tell me that you don't have a point in time when you're getting sick and tired of playing Madden, beating the same computer, shooting up the same guys on Fortnite, playing Valorant. So you get tired of it. You want social connection." I like YouTube. And like you, Dr. McDuffie, I sit there watching my little Jordan Peterson videos and my Dr. Hoffman. But after a while, I'm like, you know what? Whew, good Lord. Let me go play some pool. Let me call up the homies. Let me talk to my friends. Let me connect with my family members. We are creatures of habit. And I think during the pandemic, we saw how we can fall into the bad habit of isolation. And then we realized, wow, we can easily disconnect. And so it's still self-awareness of we need each other. We need people. And the pandemic also showed us that. We saw just how bad we need people.
Thank you so much. We are out of time, but I want Jonathan to ask the last part of his question. We could see if we could answer it in about 1 minute or 1 or 2 minutes. And then Dr. McDuffie and Dr. Etienne, you could give it. I just spoke prophetically. We could give our closing remarks. Jonathan, what is the second part of that statement?
It's not a question, like you said, it's a statement. I feel like another thing is that mental health is a very important factor in life. And even now, when I think the promotion and the advertisement for mental health is at its highest, I feel like a lot of people still don't take it seriously. And that's why, and once you have that generational, let's say analog, it will continue going down where, let's say, the parents who never took mental health as seriously, when they come now to a generation where mental health is a serious thing, they don't know how to, let's say, how to talk to their families about this. And I feel like this could lead to lead to even more depression amongst the teens for not knowing how to figure out how to deal with their own health, and adds more to the stress. So I feel like this is another important topic, especially on the topic of quarantine. If you already don't know how to deal with your mental health, and if you're already stressed out, quarantine of course is immensely adding to it. So that's just another thing I had to say.
Thank you very much,
Thank you for
Jonathan.
sharing that. Thank you.
Wait, Dr. McDuffie, that last point Jonathan made is similar to your
Hold on,
point. I'm mute. Oh, it's similar.
hold on, real quick. This is what I just remembered to say. In doing all of this and keeping mental health in the works, we will see a break in a generational curse of not talking about things with your kids, not just dealing with what's it called, oh, everything's all right, which that's what I love to hear from him, which is knowing something is wrong, instead of just leaving it there. Say, either saying, hey, I'm here for you, and hey, I know something different, but tell me when you're ready. And that's another way of just breaking the generational curse of just dealing with mental health struggles.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna say something about that. Dr. McDuffie, that you're right, and we have to do it. That is, we need to create a forum so people could talk about what the pandemic was like on a larger scale, but people could actually speak and get it out of their system. That this, for some people, for you and me, I was like, this is one of the coolest things in the world. I finally the earth took a sabbatical. I could finally rest and could look at my thoughts and be objective of my thoughts, and it was powerful to me. And I got closer with my family, but at the same time, in families, some families got worse. I got disconnected because now, wait a minute, I got to put up with you every day. I don't even like you. I know you're forced to stay in the house with you. Became traumatizing. So Jonathan, that last statement is was very efficient. That we do, referring to what Mr. Etienne said, that is to pause. When you hear something that doesn't sound right, when you see something, say something, wait a minute, wait, that doesn't sound right to me. Let me stop and deal with this. And sometimes the young people may go into silent mode. They may not know how to understand how to hear. But that's why listening is so important. I tell Jonathan all the time as we drive back and forth to Tuskegee, when you get on my nerve, I take him out of his car, pull over, and beat him up. we're gonna tug it out until we get to some resolution. We're gonna have a conversation, and even in that, is that there has to be a patience in letting that conversation go organically, so that someone could share. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you so much, Bianca. So much, Bianca, for sticking with it the whole day and representing. I would like to say now, just take a few seconds, the 30 seconds or so, to close it out with whatever last thoughts you may have had or you are having. That's Dr. McDuffie and Mr. Etienne, whatever last thoughts you have as we close out this day. But before that, I want to remind us that we come back tomorrow. And tomorrow's conversation at beginning at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Tomorrow's conversation has to do with autism. We have Dr. Lewis Klaus from the University of Chicago, a foremost, the GOAT in the conversation about autism, a massive, massive mind. And I have also Dr. Dixon Christian, and he will be, as a matter of fact, Jonathan will be the host for that one. And dealing with autism, Dr. Dixon Christian, he's also a retired colonel. You all saw him yesterday. Dr. Christian and I have been friends for 45 years. We go back to the crib, Kathleen, to the crib, 45 years. And so he will be talking about autism. He's bringing not just the medical, as Dr. Kraus is going to do, but he's giving the testimonial, because his one of his son at least is on autistic spectrum. And then we also have two descendant family members who were on yesterday, the Lees, and they're going to talk about autism in their family. And then the last session is going to be about lupus. So we will have Walisha Steed talking about lupus and its increasing awareness as well as discovery in the Black community. And I may present something, as well as we will have Trisha Neal. I hope I said her name right. Trisha Neal, and she will be talking about her experience with lupus. It's interesting that more and more, each of us have a family member or of ourselves who has lupus. You know someone who has lupus, right? So this conversation is very important. Okay, so take it away. Let's have Dr. McDuffie. You give us your final words, and then Mr. Etienne, close it out, please.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to thank you again for allowing me to come in and just share some of the things that I was learning, especially in this context around suicide. Of course, my interests span larger than that, because what I feel I want to spend a good bit of my time, like I said, is really preserving and nurturing our humanity in this tech age. And I do believe that we can kind of do this thing in a very healthy way. And I want to be a part of the team or a part of the effort that's figuring it out, especially for African Americans, because oftentimes decisions are being made. We're not in the room. It ain't got us in mind, so I'm like, okay, let me step up and get busy on this road. So thank you again for giving me a place to present my ideas. And I'm looking forward to working more with the Bioethics Center as we keep this train rolling. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, before Ms. Etienne go, I see actually there's another question that popped up, and it's for my dear sister Joyce Christian. Wait a minute, you took the question down? Where did it go? Well, let me tell you what she said. I saw it before it was removed, or was it answered? Is that what it was?
I'm sorry. I was trying to answer them by typing. Sorry.
Oh, okay, there it is. I see it. Do you feel that the older generation is more inclined to being on Facebook as a social interaction now? Have you seen an increase in suicide among the elderly because of this platform? Oh, that is, I didn't even see that one coming. This is the Joyce Christian. That's a very potent question. Do any of you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the elderly.
Cool.
and contributions to suicide beyond kind of the normal, not the normal, but not related to cyberspace. Right. So okay. Again, Sonny, if you know anything about that, go right ahead.
No, I'm in the same boat, Dr. McDuffie. But to the person who asked the question, my response to them, I sent it privately, was I think the association between Facebook grief and suicidality with the elderly has much to do with Facebook becomes like a reminder of the people that are dying around me. I'm losing friends, and so I think it can reinforce some of the sense of loneliness, the sense of loss that they are already experiencing, similar to what we just spoke about with the pandemic and what a lot of not just young people but even adults were going through the same thing. It was a grief. We were losing people, and of course a lot of us actually lost persons. And so I think that's the only tie that I can make. I don't have anything clinical or any research to back that. But from, again, my work, this is quite common, actually. And so often you'll find folks who just cut off social media altogether because they don't want to be reminded, or they start to feel like, who else do I have left? And they're afraid to make new friends. So.
Thank you so much, Brother Etienne. Two quick things additionally. I think it's Dr. Alex Crosby, if I'm correct. posted something in the question, and if it was actually to Dr. McDuffie, if there is I think we've already considered the answer, but I want to add something to that answer. The question has social media has been used to promote the 988 crisis line. One point could it speak at one point can the speaker say more about suicide prevention among Black youth, especially programs with evidence? And I'll say this, Dr. McCrosby. I think it is Dr. Crosby, but I'll say this a couple of things quickly. One is that pointing back to to Mr. Etienne, he published a book, and I was happy. I was one of the readers for the book, called Life Sucks, SUCKS. Life Sucks is an anagram. And in that book, that's another opportunity to have the conversations that would help young people. Is that you could put it? I put it in the book in the chat, so you could pull it up and look at it. But it has, and you could get it on Kindle. You could get it as a regular hardcover. But nevertheless, in the book, it goes through many of the potential sucks. Oh, there it is. Many of the potential sucks stuff, and ask questions, the contra questions or contradictory questions, or reverses the questions, reverses the point, so that people could actually have as a benefit. So it's something that a person could work through with their therapist, but it's also something that they could work through on their own. So this is another avenue that we could get to young people to help them to diminish the amount of suicides. Additionally, Dr. Crosby, I'm involved in a work with the University of Texas Austin, as well as Cornell University, where they've created an AI that could identify certain algorithms that are predeterminants for suicide and suicidal ideation, thereby increasing the opportunity for intervention. So that program, we're going to test it on Tuskegee University campus. So that's one of the things that we're working towards. All right, so Sonny, I did cut you off, and if you want to say anything else about the book, please do.
About what was that?
If you would like to say something more about your book.
Oh, well, you know, when I was writing the book, just to give everyone a backdrop, it was during the pandemic. You know, I was confronted with death. And so usually when I talk about this, it scares a few folks, but I was visiting the cemetery. I was taking jogs and walking around the cemetery and facing my mortality. And hence I came out with Life Sucks. I saw how a lot of people were dealing with life. Life is sad, unfair, chaotic, and knowingly senseless, or is it? And so this book is helping those who suffer from suicidal ideation, those who suffer from depression and anxiety, those who, of course, are having an existential crisis. And I know a lot of you students, you know, college is tough, you know, it's socially challenging. Of course, there's the academic rigor behind it. And so I just wanted to provide you with tools, which also maybe I can answer one of the questions that was asked about what are the evidence-based approaches. I utilize some of them throughout the book, but cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectic behavior therapy, rational emotive behavioral therapy, which I think doesn't get enough attention, I think is a very important evidence-based approach to treating suicide. I did say in the comment to the person that I can't say specifically its effectiveness with Black youth, but in terms of its effectiveness across the board, it is pretty much the golden standard, particularly CBT, because CBT is, if I can help you change your thoughts, then hopefully that will create a new form of how you respond emotionally, and hopefully your decision-making will be better. Which brings to mind another evidence-based approach, and it's called choice theory, which is anchored by the late Dr. William Glasser. His work is based on the idea that all of our behaviors are chosen, and he encourages persons to take responsibility of their life and accountability and to live life.
Thank you so much, each and all. We appreciate that. We appreciate that, Mr. Etienne. We appreciate Dr. McDuffie. Bianca, we appreciate you so much. Ashanti Ali Davis working behind the scenes. Thank you so much. So I say to each of you, assalamu alaikum, peace, shalom, and blessings upon you.